Good afternoon, everybody. I am Professor Debbie Barnett. I am the Clinical Simulation and Lab Coordinator here at OCU. And today I am introducing Bob Grieve. Dr. Grieve is the Associate Professor of Information Technology here at OCU's Minder School of Business. He is an expert in innovative audio response systems for use in the classroom and the business world. And we are thrilled to have him here today.
Thank you. It'll be sad if an IT guy can't get the mic on here. Can you all hear that? Does that pick up? How about that? Better. Better? Can you all hear me? Barely? Can you hear me now? Okay, I think I'm all set. I'm not hearing myself on the speakers, but maybe it's still... Okay, I'll quit worrying about it. My name's Bob Grieve, and I teach at the Minder School of Business, which is the building just east and south of you here. I've taught here for about going on 9 years. Love teaching. I teach technology, and I direct the Love's Entrepreneurship Center. Years ago, I noticed my students wouldn't ask a lot of questions. Maybe you can relate to that. I put this picture up there. Raise your hand if you've seen that face. So, I used to joke with my students. I'd say, okay, tell me, are you bored or are you confused? Because it looks exactly the same. That was kind of what got me started thinking about audience response systems. I asked my class, this has been 10 years ago, but I asked them, if you had a button under your desk that you could push when you were lost, would you use that? And I'll never forget the response because they applauded. That was fantastic for them. So that kind of clued me into something that our students need an anonymous way to tell us what's going on in their life.
When you turn to the left, your left color, we hear you. When you turn to the right, you're off the mic.
Okay, Mike, or Chris told me not to do that. And so I have to pretend I have a stiff neck. This is a nursing school. Y'all probably have a brace around here I could wear. So I'll try not to twist too much. But they got me thinking about an anonymous way of interacting with me so that they could convey if they're lost or not, or if I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow, so that they could convey that without having to raise their hand. If you think about the technology in a typical classroom, we have projectors, we have computers, we have DVD players, we have high-end audio and video equipment, we have everything hooked up to a PC, we've got a digital document camera. Every bit of the technology in this room is geared towards conveying information from us to the student. But if the student wants to convey anything to us, what do? They've got to speak up or raise their hand. So that got me thinking about the clicker systems. How many of you are familiar with clickers? And we've kind of come to the point where everyone's walking around with a web browser in their pocket. So kind of, in my mind, the smart way to accomplish this kind of interaction now is with a smartphone or a mobile device, because most every classroom has Wi-Fi, and most every student has a browser or two or three. They might have an iPad, a laptop, and a smartphone in their backpack. So that opens up some other opportunities that we can do. So I wanted to show you one such system today, and that system's called Joint Speaker. And I'm going to talk for just a minute about the purpose behind that. But then I'm just going to demo it. We're just going to use it, and I'll let you kind of fill your mind with your own ideas of how you might use it. So, for me, the purpose is to engage the students, to assess the students, and then to adjust accordingly. So, what I will typically do is I'll ask a quiz question, several times an hour. And this creates what I might call a game show kind of environment, where students are paying attention because they know the question's coming. And it's kind of fun to see how your friends' answers compare to yours. So you have their attention. Obviously, I'm not telling you anything new, that you have to have their attention for them to learn in that environment. So this is a way to grab their attention, to ask them to participate, and to use some cool technology that they get a kick out of. So they literally enjoy that. So I want to grab their attention. Of course, that leads to better learning, but in addition, I find out if they understand what I'm teaching. So I'll feed them a multiple choice question, and I'll know now they didn't understand what I said the last 15 minutes. So there's my purpose is to ask them questions, but also to receive questions. And this is something you typically wouldn't do with a clicker, but now because they have a keyboard on that phone, on the screen, or on their iPad, that they have a way to ask us questions, and now they don't have to raise their hand. So they have that anonymity. So I've noticed that in a typical hour, I might get a couple of people who will raise their hand, but I might get a half dozen questions through a smartphone. So they're comfortable. There's anonymity. There's no reason not to ask a question. And I know whether I'm getting through. I know where I need to change my lecture. And I know how to adapt. I know as a student I've sat through presentations where I was lost 5 minutes in, but I was too embarrassed to convey that to anyone, my peers, the teacher. So I just sat there. And now we've got a way to avoid that situation and make the most use of our time. So I'll adjust the pace or I'll adjust the content. I might slow down and go over something again, or I might completely jump my original plan and talk about something a little more elementary so that they're ready for the content I planned. Here's a screenshot from the phone. This is JoinSpeaker. And if you want to join me, you can actually go to joinspeaker.com/nurse. So we created a URL. It's just something you use in your browser. Another nice benefit of using a web-based product, a web-based audience response system, is you don't have any app to download. So I don't download anything as the educator. My students don't download an app either. We're just on the website. And the website is interactive. And the website accomplishes the same functionality as the audience response system that typically a clicker might do. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go to JoinSpeaker. And typically, I will do this on an iPad. Typically, as an educator, I'll walk around the classroom with an iPad in my hand and I'll watch questions come in on my iPad. But in order to let everyone see what happens, I'm going to do it on the desktop so that you can see what the educator sees. And we'll just jump in and kind of do this as in between slides here. So I'm just going to log in. Nurse. Yeah. You always take a risk when you use technology in a presentation.
So you can't open the page.
You need to type it right into the address bar, joinspeaker.com/nurse. /nurse.
Do we have to submit our email address?
You don't have to, no. See, at this point, several people are in. Okay, let's go back. So this is what we call the moderation screen. So this is where all of the questions come in. There's usually some pretty funny stuff in a presentation like this. Let's see what we've got. We've got, hi there, hello, hello. Thanks for this info. Boom, nurse. Thank you for the presentation, etc. what I also have is, now remember this, I'm afraid to look. This typically is only seen by me on an iPad. Okay? I'm only putting it up there so you can see what I'm doing. Now, we have what I call the big screen, which you can think of as a discussion board. And I can put on that whatever I want. So I can take your input and I can push it to the big screen. I'll show you what I mean. So here, from my iPad, I might say, this is fun, I like that. And I might push it over here to on screen. And now you see it over here. Okay. So I can control, typically this is what the students would see, this is what the classroom would see. So now I have a way to take any input from the crowd that they can provide to me anonymously. I can moderate that input on my iPad, which you're seeing on the desktop. And if there's an idea or a question I want to address, I push it to the big screen and we discuss it from there. So I have control over what I do with the input. You don't necessarily want to give a room full of students the ability to put anything up on the big screen without your opportunity to filter or moderate that input. But I can come over here and I can move these to the right hand side. As I do, they show up on the big screen. So let me jump back to my PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to keep typing stuff. But I'm seeing this stuff come in, and I'll notice these questions or these comments, and I'll know time to slow down, time to go back over something. Another nice feature is all of this input, everything you've typed in is captured. And I can, a year from now, go back and I can say, what were the questions they asked when I presented at the Kramer School of Nursing? And I can pull that up by date. So you might have a particular lecture you give, and you give it every semester. You could go back last semester and say, what questions did my students ask a year ago or last semester? And then therefore, of course, how do I make this lecture better? You know, I can incorporate those questions into this next lecture I give. So that data is stored forever on a server, and it's viewable through a report. Let's see here. So I've come up with some specific uses in my class. Next week I will ask my students to maximize that. I'll ask my students to provide their own review. Okay, so what we do is we get joint speaker out and I ask them, what do you think ought to be on the test? And they type stuff in. And in a class with just 25 people, we'll generate 100 items. And essentially everyone in that room gets to see everyone else's notes. I'll generate a report. It'll create a PDF file of everything that was typed in, and I'll email the class that PDF file. And that takes all of about 30 seconds at the end of class. And my entire class has just created a crowdsourced, if you will, or a classroom-sourced review session. So imagine if everyone in your classroom could share their notes. Well, if you use a platform like this, then that becomes very easy to do. Very easy to do. So we might use it to brainstorm ideas, for example. So in a crowd like this, I could ask the question, how might we improve nursing education? And instantly, I could collect the ideas of 150 people. I could generate a report. I could email it to this crowd before I leave today. So there's powerful things that you can do with the crowd, with your classroom, that gets them engaged, makes them a part of it, and then they also produce a product. They produce part of that knowledge that you're hoping to convey to them. I use it for discussions. Kind of a funny thing with discussions. Have you ever tried to get a discussion going and it's a little like pulling teeth?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one interesting thing I've seen happen is we'll start a discussion. I'll say, what's your opinion on XYZ? And I get nothing. I hear nothing. I'll say, type in your opinion on XYZ. And because they have anonymity, they'll pull out their phone and they'll give me their opinion. They'll see their opinion on the big screen along with their friends, and they'll say, hey, I'm not the only one who feels that way. And now they have the confidence to speak. So ironically, this technology generates a verbal conversation because it gets them over that hump. It lets them test the waters. I have an opinion. Other people have the same one. Now I feel comfortable speaking in front of the class. So this anonymity is kind of a big deal. It allows students to be completely comfortable asking questions or expressing their opinions or ideas. And again, you'll get several times the questions, several times the ideas using this format versus a traditional raise your hand or stand up and speak. Another idea I put up there is something Lynn Warvig told me about, the muddiest point. Just a simple teaching technique. It says every hour or so you ask your students, what's the muddiest point? Of everything I just said in the last hour, what made the least amount of sense? What do we need to go back over? What else do we need to talk about? We'll typically do this. This has been done with 3x5 cards that you pass around the room, and you collect them and you review them. Why don't you just do it this way? You say, everybody type in, tell me the muddiest point. What didn't make any sense in the last hour? And you've instantly got a list. And then take a break, come back, you start your second half of your lecture with those items that nobody understood from the last hour. So there's just any number of ways you might use this, but you've now got a tool. Nobody has to download an app. Everybody's got this with them. You've already got the infrastructure. By that I mean you've got Wi-Fi in your classrooms. So you've got a way to connect with every one of your students in a way that they're comfortable doing so. So those are a few ways that I've used it. Yes?
Well, are you able to label that response then for that report? It would be separate from the next thing you ask them? I mean, how do you have separate reports?
It's separated by time, so time space.
Okay.
You can query all of the questions that were conveyed by date, and they appear in order. So you have to kind of figure it out a little bit.
Okay.
But everything that came in the last 5 minutes has a timestamp, and you'd say, that's
Kind of have to keep a list somewhere of what questions you asked so you know what answers go back.
I see what you're saying. Yes, whatever you convey verbally to the crowd, you've got to keep in your head, because you're just going to see the responses to those questions. You might be able to infer it from the responses, but maybe not. Yeah. Okay, I mentioned the collective review where I have my students collectively review for an exam and think about what they've learned before the test. We compile that, and again, that all happens nicely, automatically. I've already kind of started the demo. Again, it's jointspeaker.com/nurse. Let me go back and I'll show you the quizzing feature, and then I'll be able to wrap up here. Getting a lot. So just think about this. How many questions do you think we'd have in this presentation if we were just using a microphone in the crowd? How many of you would have expressed your idea, your opinion, your thought, your question if we did just in the last, I've been talking 20 minutes, and there's dozens of thoughts up there that I've captured forever. So I think that just kind of conveys what we're trying to do here. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. Let's see.
I think the teaching out of means thank God it's fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's, they're ready for me to wrap up so they can have another break. So, let's see, I've created a poll before I came out here. So I'll push the poll out here, and I'll launch it. And now you all should see momentarily a poll on your phone. And you can take that poll quickly. You should see on your phone, you should see it. You might have to scroll up or scroll down to see this. But I can push that to the big screen, and then we'll see it right here. So, several of you need coffee. Many of you are lying. Most of you are lying. I don't think I've changed anybody's life. That was meant to get a laugh. I'm not really believing that. And there's a couple honest ones in there. The yellow is the honest. So So I'll throw one of those at my students every 15 minutes or so. And that's the game show type environment. The system captures every bit of that as well. So I know the responses to a poll after the poll's been given also. Let's see.
So what do we have to do to get this?
Go to JoinSpeaker or email sales@joinspeaker.com, because there is some academic pricing that's quite different, quite lower from what's on the website. So you want to email sales@joinspeaker.com. Go back to page 9. So here's reports, and here's audience input. And you see I have all of your questions here from today. And that'll be there a year from now. And I can query by date to just keep track of that. I can send it to, what I typically do when I do the review for my students is I'll push out a particular range of input that day, and I'll push it to a PDF file. I'll turn around, I'll use our learning management system, Desire to Learn, and I'll just quickly email that PDF file to the class. So everything they generate using this product, I can turn around and email back to them. Yes?
Do you have who will ask the question?
I don't. No. We don't know who asks the question. That's part of it's a positive and a negative. Okay, so we don't know who the student is that conveyed the question. And that anonymity, with that anonymity, you get a lot more questions. But then it might be nice in some situations to have that.
So you said typically it's free for minimal use, but then there's academic pricing, meaning that the school could buy it and use it, or?
It's free for all students, and then each faculty, it's priced by faculty. The more faculty buy it, the lower the per faculty cost. Question, yes?
We were talking, I see this as a really cool way to present a concept map. You could even pull them on the top 5 diagnoses and then have everybody type in nursing intervention.
Yeah, we can even divide it into groups like Dr. Corbett presented earlier today and do a whole concept map. But endless possibilities.
Concept map.
Just say, great suggestion.
Great suggestion. I love it. I think I'm supposed to be quiet at about 5 till so that you can transition to the next speaker. Are there other questions that I might answer before I wrap things up?
So, do you need to cut down on the amount of land content so that you can respond to the questions?
Do you have to, in other words, you pull some of the meat out of your lecture so you have time for this? Is that kind of question? I don't think so. I think I might just, instead of talking about a subject, I'll oftentimes just throw a quiz question at students before I've talked about it. And that fuels discussion, especially if you get thought to the different multiple choice answers, because then you can discuss, why did you think it was A? Why did you think it was B? So I think I'll replace what I might have said with the discussion that happens from this. Did I answer the question? If I understood the question.
Well, I'm trying to plan ahead if I would use this, and there's 2 pieces here. Number one, there's a huge amount of content, too much, and I can't do it anymore with that content. So I'm looking for other methods. And number 2, it took me halfway through your lecture to get up on this.
To log on?
Yeah.
Or to open the page?
Yes. Because, well, first of all, I didn't put in the www. It went HTTP and.
There's always, I'll speak to that, there's always the first day of class. You can just count on spending 10 minutes. The second day of class, count on spending about less than a minute. Because you're always going to have some, the first time anybody uses it, you're going to have, just like we had here, we had a few people who had already posted comments by the time I got on there. But then there's always a nice big chunk of the class that might need to be walked through a little bit. It's also based on Wi-Fi, so if you have Wi-Fi issues in the building, you've got issues. So that's another obvious. Other questions? Thank you all for your time today.